we can start our session this morning. Ambassador Paula Zacarias, Secretary of State of European Affairs, Professor Jaap Tsuwan, Secretary General of TEPSA, dear colleagues and friends, members of TEPSA, on behalf of Portuguese Institute of International Relations, I would like first of all to welcome you all to this conference. Unfortunately, we can't do it in presence in Lisbon, but you are always welcome. When you come to Lisbon, please let us know. It will be a pleasure to receive you. Allow me just a few words in this open session. First of all, to say that it's for us at IPRI a great honor and a great pleasure to organize, better to co-organize with TEPSA this conference and with support of the European Commission. Second, to thank very, very much all the distinguished colleagues and friends coming from all different European member states for accepting our invitation and sharing with us your views about this topic of the Portuguese presidency. Third, to thank also those in the organization and support who made possible this conference. And I would like to emphasize the work of the TEPSA team and the work of the Portuguese Institute of International Relations team. And finally, just a few remarks about our topic today, this morning and tomorrow, about the pre-presidency of Portuguese pre-presidency of European Union, which is our topic. So as you well know, Europe, and in particular European Union, is in a crucial moment, facing a set of challenges at the internal and at the international level, with the next Portuguese presidency of the European Union will have to deal with. If we look at the international level, I think we have good news. The election of President Biden will open, I think, a new opportunity for the relaunch of the liberal international order and the relaunch and the resync of the transatlantic relationship. Free trade, we don't know yet what will happen with the TTIP, but we know that permanent alliances will prevail. Biden already stated the importance of NATO, defense of democracy, of rule of law. Biden already proposed a summit of democracies, which is an excellent news. And finally, multilateralism. So he already announced the return of the United States to Paris Agreement, to the World Health Organization. And this is good news. This is good news because this is in line with European values. But at the same time, I think it brings also to we Europeans new responsibilities and new challenges. And I think Ambassador Ana Paula will tell us, but it will put new challenges also to the Portuguese presidency of the European Union. But on the other hand, I think we have also bad news. We have bad news because the European neighborhood is increasingly unstable, from the north in Ukraine and Belarus till the south in the Eastern Mediterranean or North Africa. The Russian illiberal and authoritarian regime persists and is posing threats to European Union. And also the competition with China is a challenge that needs to be perhaps rebalanced in the Asia region. And that's why I think it's important the summit with India during the Portuguese president of the European Union. But European Union face also huge challenges at the internal level. And it's important to underline this. First of all, the pandemic, which continues to prevail in a, we should say, a deadly second wave and already provoked a serious economic crisis. The good news is that contrary to the previous crisis, I mean, the Euro crisis and the refugee crisis, European Union had a strong response to this current pandemic crisis in order to have an economic recovery. The next multi-annual financial framework and mainly the next generation mean an important step forward. We hope we will approve these documents in the next European Council in December under the German presidency. But the implementation will be a difficult task for the Portuguese presidency, I think. This is the economic or even the social issue that we face. But the European Union faces another institutional and political issue also challenging. I mean, the refusal of some of member states to accept the rule of law conditionality in this framework. So on one hand, we had an economic issue under the principle of the solidarity. And on the other hand, we have the political issue and the principle of democracy and rule of law. And both touch the essence of the European identity, and both mean difficult challenges for the European Union and for the next presidency. Brexit, of course, post-Brexit relations with UK will be also a task for the Portuguese presidency. And of course, each presidency has its own priorities, and the Portuguese presidency is no exception at this level. Social Europe, Green Europe, the summit with India and others that Ambassador Paula who is in charge and is the political responsible for this will address us. So let me just thank you again all. Thank you for accepting the invitation. Thank you for your participation, and I wish you all an excellent conference. And now, if you allow me, I'll give the floor to the Secretary General of TEPSA. Professor, the floor is yours.
Obrigado, Nuno. So, dear Excellency, Madam Ambassador, dear Nuno, dear friends and colleagues, Jaap de Zwaan, indeed, Secretary General of the Trans-European Policy Studies Association, for those who are less acquainted with TEPSA. So we are the co-organizer of this wonderful conference. Indeed, it's very special the way we have to address you this way in these extraordinary circumstances. Unfortunately, not the first time because of the COVID crisis. I simply add, let's hope it is the last one. Because, I mean, networking, we are a network organization, is about meeting and communicating with each other. Moreover, dear Nuno, it is such a pity not to be able to travel to Lisbon. Who would not like to visit Lisbon? I do certainly. In normal times, I travel at least once a year to your wonderful city, since I am a visiting professor at the Law School of Universidade de Lisboa, your competitor, IPRI-NOVA, and I provide there, as it's called, intensive EU law courses. And when I'm in Lisbon, and everybody can follow this reasoning and logic, I always like to visit wonderful quarters such as the Bearo Alto, Alfama, Rocio, Restauradores, Braço do Comércio, the famous Castle São Jorge, and the Jerónimos Monastery. And talking about Jerónimos, I must tell you, it reminds me personally of the signature of Portuguese Treaty of Accession to the European Union, the 12th of June, 1985, that took place in that monastery, and I had the honor to be present there, because I was involved in the Brussels context in the negotiations for the accession of Spain and Portugal. And at that ceremony in Jerónimos, I met your, at the time, Prime Minister, Mário Soares, a great politician and a great personality. And from him, I learned my first, not last, but my first 3 Portuguese words, Europa dos dois, because we were 12 at the time. And he kept insisting the importance of being a member of the European Union. In '86, your Mario Soares became your president. And just in one sentence in passing, when I am in Lisbon, on my way from my hotel to the university, I always pass by the residence where he lived when still alive, of course. Anyway, what I want to make clear is that by visiting the capital of the incoming presidency, you can get to know your European partner better, the atmosphere, the history, and the language, and admire the culture. And there is a lot of culture in Lisbon. Now again, unfortunately, that is not possible this time. Although I guess that are not that many people who are not so much acquainted with TEPSA, just a couple of words about our organization. We are a unique network composed of European Studies institutes from all the member states of the European Union, but also from other European countries. The network also includes the so-called associated members, a terminology referring to other interested institutes in European countries, as well as in countries associated with the European Union. And since the EU is connected to quite a number of associated countries, my dear friends, there is still some potential here. Now, TEPSA has a long tradition in organizing these conferences of incoming council presidencies. They provide, at least they aim to provide, a platform for discussions about policies and priorities of the European Union. And in so doing, we aim to provide high quality debates and research on European integration matters based on the famous and so-called AAA formula: analysis, assessment, and advice. Moreover, one of our activities consists in the preparation of so-called recommendations for the incoming presidency. And in a minute, so directly after these introductory words, a colleague of mine will present our specific and elaborated recommendations to the Portuguese presidency, in this case, more particularly to you, Madam Ambassador, in that respect. That said, if I take a look in the program prepared by our Portuguese hosts, I think indeed the program reflects rather well our agenda, the priorities you mentioned: COVID-19, the Green Deal, the digital agenda, geopolitics and the role of Europe, the future of Europe, and migration. We therefore, on behalf of TEPSA, express our sincere gratitude towards the Portuguese Institute of International Relations, IPRI-NOVA, for the program you have prepared, as well as for the overall organization. Yourself, Nuno, Carmen, Rodriga, Sara, and others, thank you very much for your efforts there. Very much appreciated. Obrigado. And of course, I always want to address a word of thanks to the TEPSA team, always with us and always guaranteeing that the work can go on. In particular, Mariam and Paul this time, I thank them for their input and excellent cooperation as well. And to all the participants, I notice we are now over 17. That's a wonderful score. I say, enjoy this unique conference. It's worth it to follow the whole program. Thank you very much. Obrigado.
Thank you, Jaap, for your kind words. And now, if you allow me, I will give the floor to Ambassador Ana Paula Zacarias, the Secretary of State of European Affairs of Portuguese government. Ambassador Ana Paula Zacarias is a diplomat. She has a long and brilliant career, and she served as Deputy Permanent Representative of Portugal in the European Union. She was head of the delegation of the EU in Brazil and head of delegation of the EU in Colombia and Ecuador. Is a brilliant diplomat, and so is now the person in charge of the Portuguese presidency of the next Portuguese presidency of European Union. And so I would like to thank you, Ana Paula, for accepting our invitation and for honoring us with your presence and with your speech. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nuno. Thank you very much, Professor Job van Zwaan, for this invitation, and a warm welcome to all of you from Lisbon, where we are actively preparing the Portuguese presidency of the Council of the European Union. Today we had a lot of rain in the morning, very early in the morning. It's sunshine now. I hope this is a good omen for the Portuguese presidency. So it's a lot of work here at this moment in terms of our preparation. So thank you very much for this debate today. I have read with great interest the recommendations put forward by TEPSA, and I know that they will be presented by Ilke very soon in great detail, and I used the overall architecture of your recommendations to structure my intervention. And I can do this because indeed there is a coincidence between the way we outline our priorities and the way TEPSA presented its recommendations. So I'm very glad for this. We have established for the Portuguese presidency 5 main themes: a more resilient Europe, a social Europe, a greener Europe, a digital Europe, and a global Europe. This is a lot to achieve. Can we do this in 6 months? Well, we need to do our part in this bigger framework. We now have this 18 months program of the trio. We have the strategic agenda of the leaders of the Union. We have the working program of the Commission, and we need to do our part of this pipeline of work. We are also living in very extraordinary circumstances, as you both pointed out, and we need to focus on 2 main aspects: immediate response. We need to deliver, and we need to deliver now, facing the crisis. And at the same time, we have to have this long-term vision. So we have to have recovery and resilience. We have to have climate action, innovation, social cohesion, and a coherent external agenda. And I'm glad to see that you say in your analysis that the Portuguese presidency, normally there is a tradition for when we have the presidency of the Council to look into long-term visions. And indeed, that's what we need to do now. So act in the current situation, give to the citizens what they really need, and at the same time, look into the future and be able to work in terms of resilience. So resilience is indeed our first priority. This is the capacity to adapt to internal, to external pressures by making sure that this response is encompassing with the demands of the citizens. So we have to look into this horizontal quality of the Union in terms of recovery, in terms of economic recovery, and in terms of its fundamental values. So we need to address this economic recovery as immediate, and we need to do this in a very immediate way. And here is the problem. So we have put together a vision, we have put together a program, but we do not have at this point the financial instruments to make this vision a reality, meaning that we have worked a lot. The European Union made a huge effort, an unprecedented action to fight the economic crisis, both in quantitative and in qualitative terms. We put together this next generation program, a multi-annual financial framework. We improved the fiscal capacity of the Union by providing for direct borrowing in the financial markets to serve as grants and loans for the member states. We connected all this with the fundamental values of the Union, putting this issue of conditionality, which is fundamental. But now we came to an impasse. The situation is not sorted out. So we really, really need that this issue can be sorted out and solved by the end of the year. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to convince the European citizens that indeed the Union is functioning, because nobody understands. We have been negotiating this financial program since 2018. So finally, the leaders came up, after 5 days of discussion, they came up with a solution. Then there was a negotiation for 5 months with the European Parliament. We came up with a solution. And now everything is stopped again because there is a problem with 2 of our member states. So we absolutely need to find a solution until the end of the year. And so this is a fundamental issue that we have to sort out now. And this takes me to a second reflection. To do this recovery, this economic recovery, to work on the resilience of Europe in short and long term, we need to do this building on 3 pillars. First pillar, sustainability. Second pillar, innovation. Third pillar, well-being, a well-being of people. And so let me talk about these first 2 pillars, sustainability and innovation. This is the famous twin transition, the twin transition for green and a digital Europe. This twin transition is a long-term structural shift for our society. And this has been based on technologies, on behaviors that are not useful anymore. So we need to change technology, we need to change behavior, and we need to focus our recovery, our resilience on more sustainability, more innovation. On sustainability, we have now the European Green Deal, and in particular the European Climate Law, with a very high ambition, but with realistic targets for 2025, for 2050 and for 2030. So we can move on. And moving on means also that we need to look into innovative projects such as green hydrogen, new forms of energy. We need to look into interconnections that need to be in place so that we can do this. We need to look into sustainable transport. This is the year of railway in Europe. We have to take advantage of this. We need to look into the blue economy, sustainability of the oceans. We need to look into forest management, water management, and we need to look also in the sustainability of the rural world. So this is a big block of work that we will look into during our presidency. Second block, digital targets for 2030. They have been presented by the European Commission. We need to work on 3 main areas. Industry of data. Data is fundamental for the European Union. We need to catch up with the US in the sector of digital data. We need to work better on connectivity, on the 5G and on the cables that will connect us with the other continents. And we need to work on a very important element, digital democracy, or putting in another way, digital rights. The pandemic showed that there is a lot of inequality in access to the digital world. We need to work also on this element of the digital rights. And we need to look also into the digitalization of the public services. And we have already earmarked 20% of the post-pandemic recovery funds for digital initiatives. So 20% for digital initiatives, 37% for green initiatives. So if we sort out the package, we will have the vision, the plan, and the financial instruments to do this. But these 2 transitions will have also a very relevant impact in terms of society, in terms of the way people perceive this transition. There will be an impact on jobs. There will be an impact on society. And so This is where the third pillar comes in, the well-being. So it means that we have to look into the European social model and its relevance. Without it, where would have we been in terms of safety if we didn't have this model in Europe during this pandemic? This was the model that allowed us to have employment insurance, to have the capacity to look into reduction of poverty, to face the issues of inequality, the support for health insurance. So we believe that the European model of market economy is our distinguished factor as economies and societies, which are free and forward-looking, while ensuring that everyone's benefit for comparable conditions in their lives, regardless of their social economic background, regardless where they grew up, and regardless their color, regardless of whom they love. This is the European social model market at functioning. And this is very fundamental. We need to preserve this model, to look into it and see how can we reinforce this model. And we have the pillar, the European pillar for social rights. This was an important achievement, but it's just a set of principles. We need to put this into action. And this will be, we hope, the hallmark of the Portuguese presidency. This is the heart of our presidency, to look into people, to look into the social agenda and into social policies. We need to regain the trust of the people. We need to fight populism. We need to fight disinformation. We need access to education, to skills. We need to look into the inequalities that the pandemic put clearly us in front of a mirror, where we can see these difficulties. We need to look into healthcare, into public health policies, and how the union can work better in this area. And this is immediately, but also with a long-term perspective. We have to look into this for the next 10 years. We have to have this prospective look on the social agenda for Europe. And here it is very important because there is a societal process of change, and everyone must feel included. That's why we always say nobody can be left behind. The coal miner, the truck driver, the travel agent that lost his job, the lives that are affected directly and for this disruption. We need to preserve this sense of well-being, this capacity of working together. This also entails a certain way of working together and having a certain identity, building more on this European citizenship identity. So, last point, all these three pillars, this recovery, this resilience, have to be put together with a coherent external agenda. And this external agenda has a lot of points, but I will emphasize first and foremost multilateralism. As you rightly said and pointed out, we have someone now in the White House that says that he will be pushing for multilateralism again, revise multilateralism, revive multilateralism. We need this, absolutely, from security to the economy, from WTO to NATO, from the World Bank to the Paris Agreement, to all these areas where we need to work better and to work more. And this preference for multilateralism is both selfless and selfish, I would say. Selfless because this is a system that makes us work together in a better way. A little bit selfish because we are supposed to set some of these standards. And it is very important that we set the standards for social inclusion, for labor rights, for environmental standards. It is very important for the European Union to be seen as a standard setting. And then we need to look into partnerships, the transatlantic partnership. We need to look to a partnership with India as one of the big players nowadays, the biggest democracy in the world. We will look into that. We will have a summit with India during the Portuguese presidency. We need to look to Africa, fundamental relations with a continent that is our neighbor. It's our partner in the world. We need to have a strategy with Africa, a very strong dialogue with this, with the African Union. We need to look, as you've rightly pointed out, to our neighborhood. There are problems in the east, there are problems in the south. We need to have a reinforcement of our strategic vision for our southern neighbors too. And finally, we need to work with the UK. The UK will be a very relevant partner in the future. We need to being able to work with the UK. Then there is still the agenda for trade, and this in itself, it's a very relevant issue that you've been pointing out in your recommendations, that we need to address this theme in a very thorough way, encompassing also what we want to do in terms of industrial policy and the revitalization of the industrial policy in Europe. So I think I will stop here. I really want to thank you for this opportunity. Unfortunately, I cannot stay with you during the whole conference. I have to go for a meeting with my French colleague that is visiting today. But my colleagues will be here listening to your recommendations, to your analysis, to your assessment, and above all, to your advice. We need it, and we will use it during our presidency. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Ana Paula, for your excellent speech and for the presentation of the tasks for the Portuguese presidency. I think which will not be easy to carry out, but anyway, I'm sure you will do it very, very well. So thank you again. And if you allow me now, I will give the floor to Ilke Toygür. I don't know if my pronunciation is correct, but anyway, Ilke, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. The pronunciation is perfect. Good morning, everyone. I want to send also my greetings to all the colleagues all over Europe. As everyone else, I wish we were in Lisbon, because I think this is something we are really regretting. TEPSA PPCs are very, very rare occasions to see all colleagues from all over Europe. So I hope this is the second and the last PPC that we are organizing virtually, and I hope we will see each other very soon. I would like to thank very much to Ms. Secretary of State, Anna. Thank you very much for taking the time to read our recommendations. I'm so happy to hear that we are very much on the same page, because it means that the vision of the current presidency, the upcoming presidency, and various colleagues from the TEPSA network are very much shared. So I see that this is good news for the future of European integration. I would like to take a couple of minutes for also thanking my colleagues, because as you all know, TEPSA recommendations are teamwork, and a very extended teamwork. I would like to start with Nicoletta Pirozzi and Funda Tekin, my colleagues from the board of TEPSA, and it's a pleasure to work with them. I would like to underline that. They are very hardworking, very dedicated to contributing to the future of European Union. It's a real pleasure to work with them, and I'm really looking forward to physical PPC, so we can have a city walk afterwards and drink a glass of wine after all the talks all day long. Then I would like to also thank to Anna Krasteva, Andrea Membretti, Pret Kusig, Bernardo Venturi, and Carlos Malamud, who very, very generously spent their time to contribute to the recommendations and wrote some specific recommendations for the Portuguese presidency. I will try to present them as well, but I also very much recommend you to read them in detail. And last but not least, I want to thank the TEPSA team, and to particularly Paul and Hugh, because without their insistent emails, follow-ups, and their intentions to finalize the recommendations and record them into videos, etc., we wouldn't be here. So thank you very much all for your contributions. After these personal notes and acknowledgements, I think I can go through the content. And since the Secretary of State and many of you have already read it, I will try to keep it brief for the sake of time. As you all know, from January 1st onwards, Germany will hand over the presidency to Portugal. And even if the situation is not as bright as we all expected with the second wave, I think now with the hope of vaccine in sight, etc., there is a steadier path towards a post-COVID-19 recovery. At least this is the desire we have. But still, there are protests against continued lockdowns and restrictive measures, and Christmas is approaching. Everyone wants to spend it with their families. So the issue is not necessarily over yet. Very important mention should be also given to inequality, because I think the pandemic showed us all once again, after all these crises in the 21st century, the inequality is rising throughout Europe, even like it is there, and a very important reality that we should be carefully focusing on. And the impact of recovery fund is very much abated. So I think the first thing that we should say that the MFF negotiations, multi-annual financial framework, and the recovery fund should be concluded without any delay and started to be implemented. We have summarized the challenges that the European Union is facing into two groups, and I think they are very much interrelated, but they can be named as internal and external challenges. Internal are mainly focusing on the divisions and differences of opinion between the member states. The core ones are already mentioned by Anna, being the lying on the principle of solidarity and principle of conditionality over rule of law. And externally, they are also already being mentioned, the EU's neighborhood. I think I cannot underline enough, also because of my nationality, I guess, the importance of spending some time on thinking a new strategy for EU's neighborhood, right? Because I think it's very urgent. And clearly, all the other affairs in the international dossier, not the good news with Biden administration, but the need to focus on transatlantic relations on more equal footing, EU, Africa, EU, Mercosur, EU, India, etc., etc. So we have mainly structured the recommendations in three groups. And the first one we name is as finishing the unfinished business. So mainly connecting the Portuguese presidency to the German one. The second one is very much in line with your desires, or with your mark that you would like to leave in Portuguese presidency. So setting a mark of its own, focusing on resilience, social and green Europe. I think this is very much shared by many colleagues in the network. And third of all is the process of initiating relations with the new Biden administration. I think it is the best news we had for a long time, and it's clear that the reality of Joe Biden taking office in January 2001 is going to be good news. But I think there are two dimensions that would be very much thought through and worked through the European Union in general, Portuguese presidency in particular. The first one is the revitalization of transatlantic relations on a more equal footing. And I think one of the key things that we should do in 2021 is to define the areas that the European Union could contribute or even lead when it comes to transatlantic relations, because I think it is clear that the golden days where the Europeans could delegate their own security to the United States are over, and everybody is aware of it, but not everybody is aware of what is next and what are the areas that the EU should play a more structural and leading role. So I think the Portuguese presidency could start with that thinking. And secondly, I will elaborate further on this, but this is something that I think would be useful for both sides of the ocean, is that to connect domestic politics to external foreign policy. Because I think the challenges that the United States is facing regarding to its democracy, institutions, and all the issues of polarization and unrest in its society are very much shared in European societies as well. And this is clearly connecting to the need of strengthening democracy, both inside the European Union and outside in its neighborhood. So I think establishing a link between these domestic challenges and foreign policy, and a bit like changing the focus of transatlantic relations, could help both sides of the Atlantic. When we are going back to the unfinished business, it is clear that the core is the MFF negotiations and Next Generation EU, as we have already said. Then we have a special focus on the conference on the future of Europe. As far as I could hear, I didn't hear any mentions to the conference, Anna. So I would like to underline the points that we have written on that, because it is not just talking about the conference, but and promising a conference that will take place in a foreseeable future, but also defining a compromise on the chair of the conference, finalizing its working methods and calendar, defining its goals and nature. And we have put a core question there. Should the conference lead to a proper EU institutional reform, or should it merely be a citizens' consultations forum? It could be both, it could be none, it could be anything we desire, but the core issue is to define its goals and nature as soon as possible. I'm not going to focus so much on the mark that you would like to leave, resilient, social, and green Europe, because you have already done that way better than I could do. So that's I'm very happy that this is a shared desire. And as I said, the third line in our recommendations is the transatlantic relations, because the Portuguese presidency is going to be the first presidency to get in touch with the Biden administration. This is clear that transatlantic relations require a long-term strategy. There is no doubt on that. But I think the Portuguese presidency could focus a bit on the angle that we are recommending on the connection between domestic politics, especially when it comes to democracy and resilience of democratic institutions, and foreign policy in general. So I think this is an interesting angle which very much fits in your program as well. As I have already said, then we have 4 specific areas. I know I have like, I think 4 or 5 minutes left, so I would like to spend like a minute in each of them. The first one is migration. This is also a topic that was not necessarily so much underlined in the Portuguese presidency, but I think it's essential and very much fits into the spirit of the presidency as well, especially if it is focused on people, talent, and the possibility of giving dignity to asylum seekers as well. This is not just about border security and sovereignty of member states, but also this is about human. And there's a Commission's proposal on the table for a new pact on migration and asylum. And I think it's a great opportunity, even if the followers of the European politics is going to say it's not the time for it. I think I will insist that it's time, because it's never going to be the best time to deal with the issue of migration. Then we have digitalization. Our colleague Pires has put forward the issue of European e-identity as an issue that is required to be taken into account during Portuguese presidency, because focus on digital equality also requires the definition of e-identity. So that is there with further explanation. Then we have EU-Africa, and I'm glad that there will be a summit, at least hopefully there will be a summit. I know that the Portuguese would prefer to do it in person. So in case it's not going to be possible, that might be postponed once again, but I hope that's not going to be the case and it will take place. But the key point is, and you have underlined it as well, Anna, it shouldn't be a European solution for African problems, but mostly focusing on the possible collaborations on equal footing once again between the African Union and the European Union. Last but not least, a recommendation from my colleague from the Institute, Carlos Malamud, on the EU-Mercosur deal. I know it was not mentioned also in your presidency, but since it is Portugal and since we are a Spanish institute, we are expecting you to go ahead with the strengthening of the bi-regional relationship with Latin America, and also going ahead with the ratification of the Mercosur agreement. This is not only important for this regional collaboration, but also very important for EU's global positioning in a region quite important for not only the European Union also, but also for the world. I think this is a very quick 15-minute summary of the recommendations. Once again, I would like to thank everyone that has contributed to its preparation. It is a pleasure and an honor to be on the recommendations team. And we will be here, Anna and all Portuguese colleagues, if you would like to also collaborate during the presidency. Thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you, Ilke, for presenting us the TEPSA recommendations in a comprehensive and stimulating way. I'm sure we will raise some questions in the debate. And now I immediately give the floor to the rapporteurs from the project Engage EU Council, which is a project implemented by the Institute for European Politics in cooperation with the Portuguese Institute of International Relations and the Center of International Relations of Ljubljana, with the main goal of developing new and young ideas about the future of Europe. So I'll give the floor to the project Engage EU Council.
Thank you. I will share my screen so you can follow easily our.
Thank you.
So my name is Francisco Paupério. I am Portuguese, born in Porto. I'm 25 years old and I have a bachelor's in biology. I'm currently a PhD student in the Gulbenkian Institute of Science. I'm here to present some of the ideas we developed in this project, Engage Your Council. Namely, I will present the social policies we think are urgent to implement in the current context. We cannot deny that economic and social inequality has been risen all across Europe, especially due to the current pandemic situation. Therefore, we focus now on 3 ideas that we believe are a good strategy to reduce inequality. First, an individual minimum wage for each member state. We actually discussed this idea before we heard the news that this subject was already being considered, and we were very happy to hear it. And despite not knowing the actual details that are being discussed, we propose that this minimum wage follows a formula based not only on the economic situation of the member state, but also the standards of living and the social indicators. Second, we call for a social resilience package to tackle directly the economic inequality issue. To complement the SURE initiative, we propose that member states tackle the social indicators, such as poverty, education, unemployment, and NEET rates, by directly distributing money to help maintain or even increase equality. This will also provide advantages such as consolidating the values and boost the confidence in the EU institution by its citizens, which in these troubling times, it's extremely important. Third, and I can't believe this still has to be stressed in 2020, we must close the gender pay gap. Women in the EU were earning an average of 14% less than men. Women are now even more likely to quit their jobs to assume unpaid care work. We emphasize that the new strategy on gender equality needs to be particularly ambitious in the current circumstances. We then present 4 measures that are urgent to implement right away. First, an education intervention aimed at promoting initiatives that deconstruct gender roles, maximizing the number of women in well-paid jobs. Second, implementation of social laws to create social support for families through public institutions and promote parental leave for both parents. Third, implementation of wage transparency policies to establish fair incomes and promote flexible schedules. And 4, an active ongoing supervision that ensures the adoption of these measures. As representatives of the European youth, we therefore urge you, the EU member states, to take action in order to ensure the realization of the European pillar of social rights and to overcome these growing inequalities across Europe. I want to acknowledge all the members of the Social Policy Group, Cassandra Grutzner, Maria de Mar Costa, Moya Gladek, Nora Kirimi, and Peter Mrdovic. And I'm sorry, and I'll ask you just 1 minute of your attention, but I probably won't have many chances to address you. To create the change, we need to believe the change. The young people really want to be involved, and please let us be more involved. And with this, I do not want to take out the value of this initiative. I just want to expand it further. We young people want to be a part of the discussion, and we want to be included in the conversation. Europe is also ours, and the future of Europe is definitely also ours. Do not forget that. We are the most prepared generation in the human history, yet our path is leading to a reduction of general quality of life compared to our parent generation. Is this inevitable? I don't think so. However, we must act now. You also must act now. And we would like you to know that we are here to be a part of this European project. I know that young people's political participation is definitely different than previous generation, but it's not necessarily worse. I am still extremely hopeful and inspired by my generation. I see movement, I see commitment, something that during the times of peace and stability, I dare to say that was never seen before. We face new challenges, and I believe that these challenges require more collaboration across generations, which is not happening at the scale we would like. I would like to end with a quote from a musician. If you have one shot, one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted in one moment, would you capture it or let it slip? Because for me, I would grab it with both hands. Thank you for your attention. Now I'll pass to my colleague Florian to present more measures on trade policy. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. I'm Florian Hohmeier from Germany, and I'm an industrial engineer. I'm here today to talk about trade policies in the name of the young people from Europe. Trade concerns the citizens, the companies, and also on stakeholders around the world. Trade should reflect our European values. So first of all, we call for red lines in free trade agreements. Recently, the Amazon fires have made headlines. They led to a divided Europe and made us unpredictable for our partners because it impacted the ratification of the Mercosur agreement. We should have the Chief Trade Enforcement Officer to have clear guidelines on how we want to conduct trade in the future. It should include stipulations on forest protections, CO2 emissions per capita, and human rights protections. And we should be open to have tariffs or embargoes if it goes against our values. Our second point concerns one of the biggest trade negotiations that are in trade. There's a long list of sensitive issues. It could be from the unequal market access for European companies, subsidies to Chinese state-owned companies, the intellectual property rights protection or emission problem. This is an unsustainable status quo. And as Madam Anna Zacarias said before, we should always look into the future of our actions. We should see that our position six months ago was better than it is now. And 6 months in the future, it will be worse than it is now. So we urge you for current action to get a deal signed. That we had at the moment is the comprehensive agreement on investment, and it should have been signed this year, but it was delayed. So it should be clearly communicated to the Chinese that if nothing happens in the next 6 months, we would orientate to the United States and seek intellectual rights protection there. And we as a group recognize that China signed the RCEP in Asia, and it includes some intellectual property rights protections. Lastly, we want to address our neighborhood, and I'm very happy that it has been mentioned a lot. We should, when we go to Africa, look into past projects, look into lessons learned, and see if we can build on this, not only as trade, but see trade to facilitate an equal partnership and also realize the limitations that we have met in the past in this region. I want to thank everybody from my group, that's Jan Horstmann, Kaya Iglic, Lan Kovac, and Anna Steinmeier. And I want to thank Engage Your Council for giving us this platform. Thank you.
Is there a next speaker?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lukas Grunsfeld. I'm from Germany, and I'm currently doing my master's in international relations at the University of Tübingen. As Foreign Policy Group, we also developed 3 ideas, which I'm delighted to present here today. First, and in line with some recommendations of the Trade Policy Group, we suggest steps towards a more comprehensive EU strategy with Africa, which should contribute to achieving the goals of the AU's Agenda 2063. We therefore introduced 2 concrete ideas to be implemented in a 10-year framework. First, we suggest to enhance and secure access to clean water in drought-affected areas through investment in infrastructure for seawater desalination and water supply systems. Second, we suggest investment in research and flagship projects to analyze the impact of genetically modified seeds on crop yield and soil regeneration in areas affected by desertification. Our second idea is concerned with strengthening the efficiency and coherence of the EU's CFSP. Currently, decision-making in the Common Foreign and Security Policy is based on unanimity. This prevents timely, decisive, coherent, and efficient reactions in the EU's foreign policy, and it leaves the EU vulnerable to divisive pressure by third countries. We suggest to introduce qualified majority voting to council decisions in the following areas of CFSP. First, EU positions on human rights in multilateral fora and bilateral relations with third countries. Second, EU reactions concerning violations of international law. Third, decisions on the adoption and amendment of EU sanctions regimes. And lastly, decisions on the establishment and implementation of civilian CSDP missions. Our last idea is concerned with re-establishing and enhancing Mission Sophia. From 2015 to early 2020, Mission Sophia helped to rescue tens of thousands of migrants in distress in the Mediterranean Sea. Further, it contributed to a reduction of human trafficking in the region and helped to enforce the UN weapons embargo on Libya. We suggest to re-establish Mission Sophia and enhance its operational strength. This will serve 3 goals. First, it contributes to increased cooperation in the EU's common security and defense policy. Second, it allows to end cooperation with the Libyan Coast Guard, which is criticized for its abysmal human rights records. And most importantly, it will help to end the humanitarian disaster in the Mediterranean Sea and save thousands of lives, a task which is currently outsourced to controversial NGO activities. Finally, I want to thank all my colleagues from the Foreign Policy Group for their outstanding work. I'm looking forward for the rest of this conference, and I'm handing over to Clarissa. Thank you.
Thank you. Next
Thank you
speaker.
very much for handing over, Lukas. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for your attention and listening to our ideas. My name is Clarissa Roth. I am 21 years old and I study political science and public law in my bachelor's in Tübingen in Germany. In lines with the Portuguese presidency's goals, the resilience delegation worked on policies to enable the EU to meet current and future challenges while strengthening citizens' confidence in its functioning and making it more digital and sustainable. To this end, we propose the 3 following ideas. First, transparent future EU. Transparency has always been one of the main values of the EU. However, there remains a significant implementation gap between anti-corruption rules and practice. Especially the enormous 1.8 trillion euro MFF and the swiftly mobilized recovery instrument Next Generation EU of 750 billion euros are more likely than ever to be abused. This is why we propose the establishment of a new mechanism, which would oversee the coming budget to ensure transparency and counter corruption. The future of the European Union is transparent and so need to be its funds. Secondly, Circle, the second proposal, addresses the need for resilient critical infrastructure in the EU. The EU has been required to be resilient on numerous occasions in the last decade alone, and we do not know what is coming with the climate crisis or increased cyber attacks. Currently, EU legislation considers only energy and transport as essential systems providing vital economic and social functions and needing protection from natural and man-made shocks. Given the new kinds of threats, however, we call on the European Commission to leverage its forthcoming impact assessment to, first of all, broaden the 2008 directive's critical infrastructure list. Secondly, boost vulnerability reporting, early warning systems, and coordination. And thirdly, articulate with other programs, such as the EU Civil Protection Mechanism. This will be a challenge, but more than ever, it is time to square the circle. Finally, we propose a centralized sustainability fund for digital small and medium-sized enterprises out of the NGEU tool. As SMEs are the backbone of the European economy, building their resilience should be included in the recovery to ensure a sustainable digital transformation in line with the 2030 digital targets. Despite 30% of the MFF and the NGEU being allocated to sustainable investment fighting climate change, the budget is missing a specialized fund for sustainability-focused SMEs that operate in the digital economy. Thank you very much for listening to our proposals. I would also like to thank my group for the great work. And if you have any questions concerning the proposals, my fellow rapporteurs, delegates, and I would be happy to answer them and also offer you more material and evidence on our proposals.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Clarissa. Thank you, Lucas, Florian, and Francisco, for your excellent projects and for your interventions. Thank you very much. Europe needs young generations. Europe needs new ideas and new ideals. And we are very, very grateful to your project. We have now 12 minutes for debate. And in order to organize the debate, I will ask those who would like to intervene to raise your hand in the Zoom system, and we will give the floor according to the order of asking the floor. So, Paul, the floor is yours.
Good morning from Vienna to Lisbon. It's great to see you all today. Thank you for having us and hope to see you soon in person. Can I seize the opportunity to ask two very quick questions to Anna? Because we're now very privileged to have you here. My first question would be something you have mentioned in your introductory remarks. The challenge which we have at the moment, the veto regarding the Next Generation EU Fund and the MFF. From your point of view, what would be your suggestion to sort out this issue? And what do you think of one of the options, which is for the 24 other member states who are in favor of a quick implementation of the fund and the MFF to do it via enhanced cooperation? My first question. My second question is, what are your plans to advance with the idea of a European health union, something which was mentioned also by President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen? Would you rather see a new transfer of competences, or would you believe in a better cooperation between member states in the field of health? Thank you very much.
Anna.
Okay. Thank you very much. Two tough questions. First one, not an easy one. First of all, we need to understand clearly what could be an answer to Poland and Hungary. We need to know what would be a way out of the situation, but a way that doesn't mean to go back to the European Parliament. I think it will be almost impossible to take the regulation back to a discussion again with European Parliament. We are all in agreement. The European Parliament is in agreement. There are 25 member states that agree with this regulation. So from my point of view, but we are not doing anything at this moment. We are just supporting the German presidency. It's up to the German presidency to do this very difficult job, and they are doing it the best possible way, to see what could be a position of comfort to these two countries. We listened to Poland saying that they need more legal security. They need more legal security. And the president of the European Commission yesterday said, if you want to be more sure about the connection between this regulation and the whole set of legislation of the European Union and the conformity with the treaties, then let's ask to the Court of Justice. So somehow bringing in the Court of Justice into this discussion could possibly help and give this enhanced legal insurance that Poland is talking about. Will this be enough for Hungary? We don't know. But we have to find a way to bring these two countries to the consensus. I think both countries understand clearly what is at stake. And they understand that they cannot go against the interest of their own citizens at this point, blocking this decision. It's very tough for them, I also have to say. They understand that this is a tough decision. So I still hope that we can find a compromise. I think the German presidency is doing a fantastic job in terms of looking for this detailed position so that we can find still a solution this year. Let's see how this can be done. With the European Health Union, we totally agree with this idea of the president or the president of the Commission with this program for enhancing the cooperation in the domain of health. We have seen how this worked during the pandemic. There will be more pandemics. We know that it's not the only one. We need to be ready for this. And we need, as European Union, also to be ready to share data in terms of health, in terms of public health. This is important. And we need to increase the role of our agencies that deal with health, with pharmaceuticals, with this increased scientific work that needs to be done. So we agree, and we think this is important. It's not the moment to change the treaties. Nobody would understand, the citizens would not understand that we start now a process of changing treaties. We need to sort this in the framework of the existing treaties and enhance this capacity, enhance this work. You mentioned also, can we work together, do an enhanced cooperation in case there is the veto persists from these two countries in terms of the MFF and the next generation? We could, it's a possibility, but it's a very tough decision. Very, very tough. And it will take a long time. So it is a possibility. We have to keep it in our horizon, but it will be very, very difficult to put forward, and it will have their consequences to the whole Europe. If I now, Nuno, if you allow me, just two very brief words to say, yes, the Conference on the Future of Europe is very important. I didn't mention, but it is in our horizon, and we probably will be the ones starting it during our presidency. And yes, Mercosur, Latin America is very important. We will push for the agreement. That's certain. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. We have some minutes more, and we have one more question. Uffe, the floor is yours.
Yes, hello. My name is Uffe. I'm from Denmark, and thank you so much for this event. The Portuguese host said that I was welcome in Lisbon, and I would like to come and visit you and your institute. Thank you very much. I want to.
Is very welcome.
Thank you. And about the Conference of the Future of Europe, I was also going to say it's very important. And it's very important to mobilize, you could say, ordinary citizen I am an ordinary citizen from Denmark, and yesterday I did a speech in Europe Direct in Odense in Denmark. There's all these Europe Direct office all over Europe, or all over EU, and it's just very important to have a dialogue also on the, you could say, people to people, or people to organizations, people to politicians and European Commissions and all that. So I just want to say it's very important to mobilize also the very ordinary people and their interest in the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your remark. I don't know if any of the speakers would like to make some comment or not.
If I may just, Nuno, about the Conference on the Future of Europe. Indeed, we are still discussing with the European Parliament and the Commission what will be the final setting of the conference. I am very glad to hear that the negotiations are now almost at this the last stage, and that soon we will have an announcement that the conference indeed will take place. And the relevant dynamic here is what can we do at local, regional, national level, and how can we take this debate to the European level, and above all, to have a mechanism of answering, or a following mechanism that people can see what has been done with their advice or what has been done with their proposals, so that they do not feel that, okay, they heard me and then what happened? So we need to have this follow-up mechanism so that people can feel that we're listening and that we're answering to what they say. Because we had the dialogues. Remember, last year we had the European, the citizens' dialogues. They were important. They were really very important to bring in the people. But we need now to have a more structured way of doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. We are now touching the end of our time. It's 10:15. I would like to renew my thanks to Ambassador Ana Paula Zacarias, also Ilke and the young generation too, for the brilliant participation. Thank you, Jaap, for this collaboration between TEPSA and the Portuguese Institute of International Relations. And we close now this opening session. We will have a break and we will be back in half an hour. Thank you very much.